Hello everyone and welcome to the Cashflow Positive channel. I'm Karam, your guide through the complex yet captivating world of finance. This channel was born out of a desire to simplify the often daunting realm of financial knowledge. Whether you're a seasoned investor or a curious beginner, Cashflow Positive is your go-to platform for easy-to-digest financial education. Our mission is to make finance accessible to everyone, breaking down intricate concepts into bite-sized, comprehensible pieces. We believe that understanding finance is not an exclusive privilege but a crucial life skill, and we're here to ensure that everyone gets their fair share of financial wisdom. So, if you've ever felt overwhelmed by the jargon-filled world of finance, you're in the right place. Today, we delve into the concept of inflation, an important topic that affects everyone's pocketbook. So sit back, relax, and let's learn together. To put it simply, inflation is the rate at which the general level of prices for goods and services is rising. Now, this might sound like a mouthful, but let's break it down. Think of inflation as the slow, creeping monster in your financial closet. It quietly munches away at the value of your money over time. If you've ever heard your grandparents reminisce about how a loaf of bread used to cost a quarter, or how a movie ticket was just 50 cents, you've encountered tales of inflation firsthand. So how does inflation work exactly? Well, it's all about supply and demand. If demand for goods and services increases faster than supply, prices tend to rise. This can occur for various reasons, such as increased production costs, higher wages, or even government policy. For instance, let's say a drought hits a major coffee-producing region. The supply of coffee beans drops, but the demand for our beloved morning brew remains high. Consequently, the price of coffee goes up. That's inflation in action on a micro level. However, inflation isn't just about rising prices, it's also about the decrease in purchasing power of money. If inflation is at 2% per year, that means $1 next year will only buy 98 cents worth of goods compared to this year. Inflation is usually caused by a combination of economic factors. These could include increased demand for goods and services, higher costs of production, or even a rise in government spending. When the economy is booming, people have more money to spend, which can drive up prices. On the flip side, if production costs increase, say due to higher wages or raw material prices, companies may pass these costs on to consumers in the form of higher prices. You might be wondering, is all inflation bad? Not necessarily. A moderate amount of inflation is considered normal and even healthy for an economy. It encourages spending and investment, which fuels economic growth. However, when inflation gets too high or happens too quickly, it can cause economic instability. In essence, as inflation rises, every dollar you own buys a smaller percentage of a good or service. So, understanding inflation is key to managing your money effectively and ensuring your financial future. Now that we understand what inflation is, let's talk about how it affects us. Inflation, like many things in life, has its pros and cons. On one hand, moderate inflation is a sign of a healthy economy. It indicates that consumers are spending, businesses are investing, and the overall economy is growing. But on the other hand, high inflation can be a real headache. Let's begin with how inflation impacts the economy. High inflation can cause uncertainty and can deter investment and spending. If prices are rising rapidly, businesses may find it hard to plan for the future, and this uncertainty can slow economic growth. Furthermore, if inflation in one country is much higher than in others, that country's goods become more expensive relative to foreign goods. This can reduce exports and increase imports, which can lead to a trade deficit. Inflation also affects individuals and their purchasing power. Purchasing power is the value of money in terms of what it can buy. When inflation rises, the cost of goods and services also increases. Over time, if your income doesn't keep up with inflation, you'll find that you can't buy as much as you used to. This is known as the erosion of purchasing power. For example, let's say a cup of coffee costs $2 today. If inflation is at 2% per year, that same cup of coffee will cost about $2.04 next year. That might not seem like a lot, but over time these small price increases can really add up. Inflation also affects the cost of living. When prices rise, people often need more money to afford the same standard of living. This is particularly tough on people with fixed incomes like retirees, who may see their savings dwindle as the cost of living increases. So, in a nutshell, while moderate inflation can be a sign of a healthy economy, high inflation can cause economic uncertainty, erode purchasing power, and increase the cost of living. As prices rise, the value of money falls, leading to a decrease in purchasing power. You may be wondering, how do we measure inflation? Well, it's not as complicated as it might seem. The most common method used is the Consumer Price Index, or CPI for short. The CPI is a measure that examines the weighted average of prices of a basket of consumer goods and services. Imagine going to the grocery store and filling your cart with a standard set of items. A loaf of bread, a gallon of milk, a dozen eggs, and so forth. The CPI essentially does the same thing, but on a much larger scale, and includes a wide range of goods and services like transportation, medical care, and education. The changes in the cost of this basket of goods and services from one month to the next are used to calculate the rate of inflation. If the cost of the basket increases, we have inflation. If the cost decreases, we have deflation. But that's not the only way inflation is measured. Another method is the Producer Price Index, or PPI. The PPI measures the average changes in prices received by domestic producers for their output. This includes industries like manufacturing, agriculture, mining, and services. Then there's the Gross Domestic Product Deflator, or GDP deflator, which is a measure of the price levels of all new domestically produced final goods and services in an economy. It differs from the CPI and PPI in that it isn't based on a fixed basket of goods and services, so it can account for changes in the quality and variety of items consumers buy. These different measures give us a fuller picture of inflation, each capturing slightly different aspects of price changes in an economy. And while no single measure is perfect, by using them together, economists and policymakers can get a pretty good idea of the overall trend. So why does it matter to you? Well, understanding how inflation is measured can help you make informed decisions about your money. If you know how inflation is trending, you can adjust your savings and investment strategies to protect your purchasing power. So next time you hear about the CPI or PPI, you'll know exactly what they're talking about. Understanding how inflation is measured can help you make informed decisions about your money. Inflation isn't all doom and gloom. There are ways to protect yourself. Now let's move on to something that's on everyone's mind: how to shield oneself from the effects of inflation. There are several strategies to do so, and they often involve investing in assets that tend to increase in value over time. First and foremost, consider investing in the stock market. Historically, stocks have outpaced inflation. Companies can adjust their prices to account for inflation, which can lead to increased profits and potentially higher stock prices. It's like riding the wave instead of being swept away by it. Real estate is another asset that can help hedge against inflation. Property values and the rents landlords can charge often increase during inflationary periods. It's like owning a piece of land that grows money trees. Bonds, however, can be a bit tricky. When inflation rises, the fixed interest payments of traditional bonds lose purchasing power. But don't fret, there's a solution: Treasury Inflation-Protected Securities, or TIPS. These are U.S. government-issued bonds that adjust with inflation. When inflation goes up, so does the value of your TIPS. Commodities are another option. These include physical assets like gold, oil, and agricultural products. Their prices often go up with inflation because they're tangible assets, not just numbers on a screen. Then there's investing in yourself. Increase your earning power by learning new skills, getting an additional degree, or starting a side business. In the end, your ability to generate income is your greatest asset. Remember, diversification is key. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Spread your investments across these different asset classes to balance risk and reward. And finally, keep an eye on inflation trends. Stay informed and adjust your strategies as needed. With knowledge comes power, and with power comes the ability to protect your wealth. By understanding inflation and taking active steps, you can protect your purchasing power and financial future. Inflation is a complex topic, but it's crucial to understand how it impacts our finances. We've delved into the heart of this economic phenomenon today, shedding light on its nature, its effects on our daily lives, and how it's measured. We've learned that inflation represents the rise in prices over time, which can affect everything from the cost of your morning coffee to the state of the global economy. We've also discovered that being aware of inflation rates and how they're calculated can help us make informed decisions about our money. And finally, we've explored some strategies to protect our hard-earned cash from the eroding effects of inflation. Remember, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to your finances. Thank you for joining me today on Cashflow Positive. Don't forget to subscribe for more financial insights and hit the thumbs up button if you found this video helpful. Until next time, stay financially savvy and cash flow positive.